It's important for us to understand the effects of sanctions because it's our government that is imposing these sanctions. If you look at the U.S. government sanctions on Iraq during the 1990s, it was Madeleine Albright, who was the Secretary of State at that time, said that they had killed over 500,000 children with the sanctions, and she said it was worth it. Well, nothing is worth the death of 500,000 children. And today we see these sanctions that are being imposed on countries like Venezuela, where a report came out by the Center for Economic and Policy Research saying that over 40,000 people have died because of these sanctions. We see in the case of Iran chaos in terms of the economic situation. Humanitarian aid is supposed to be exempt, but it's not because the banks don't want to deal with it, the insurance companies don't want to deal with it, the shipping companies don't want to bring goods in, and so people are dying for the lack of medicines. We see in the case of Cuba how Cuba has resisted sanctions since 1961, and still the Trump administration is placing even more severe sanctions on Cuba these days, trying to keep Venezuela from even selling oil to Cuba, so that you see these huge lines of cars waiting to get gasoline. This is our government that's doing this to people, and so it's our responsibility to learn about it and our responsibility to resist. It's also important for us to understand because sanctions are portrayed to us as an alternative to war, but they're not. They are not only a kind of economic warfare that is killing people, but they also make it more likely that we go to a military direct war. And let me give you two examples of that. One is Iran, where Trump says now he wants to talk to the Iranians, and they say, hell no, we're not going to talk to you until you lift some of these sanctions. The same in the case of North Korea, where there were talks between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, and the talks just ended because the Koreans said, if you're not going to do anything about lifting at least some of these sanctions, we're not going to continue to talk to you. So it makes these conflicts more acute and really leads us to the brink of war. And so finally, I would say it's our obligation not only to know about the effects of the sanctions, but to be in solidarity with the people who are resisting these sanctions. And that's what I hope will be the outcome of these kind of educational things that we are involved in, is that people understand just how brutal the sanctions are, and we can build more of a movement to tie these things together and to say no to the U.S. imposition of economic sanctions that have such a horrendous effect on countries and people around the world.